All right, next time we got something a bit bigger to talk about. Classic Fresh Season of Mastery coming soon. Greetings, adventurers. WoW Classic Season of Mastery is coming, giving all players a chance to start fresh and a level playing field. This time around, we are planning slightly more changes. We will launch the new WoW Classic realms for Season of Mastery. These realms will invite new and current Classic players to begin fresh at level 1 for a complete reset of WoW Classic's content, starting at the very beginning of the World of Warcraft saga. As for what it is, well, they are still planning 6 content release phases. In Season of Mastery, the phase unlocks will be faster, such that there is a 12-month cadence, with phases unlocking every couple of months. So basically, at launch, it will be Molten Core, Onyxia, Maradon, PvP Honor System, and Battlegrounds, which is up from phases 3 and 4. So that's interesting. Phase 2 then, Dire Maul, Azurgos, Kazakh. Phase 3, Blackwing Lair, Darkmoon Fair, Darkmoon Deck Drops. Phase 4 is Zilgrub and Green Dragons. Then, of course, phase 5 is AQ. And Phase 6 is Nax Ramus. So there you go. There's the phases. Now, when we get into it, it's a bit more interesting because the raid bosses are going to be harder. So in the original release, they wanted to recreate the difficulty and the challenge of patch 1.12. Right, from the original WoW. And they did a pretty good job there, but many raid encounters turned out to be easier than the first time around. A lot of that is players being more equipped, more experienced. I mean, taking, modern day raid attitudes to all the way back then. One thing people forget, back then, you could have had 15 people in a 40-man raid actually be properly pulling their weight.
Yeah.
Whereas now, you go in and you've got all 40, many of whom will have been raiding in recent WoW expansions and will really just know the game well. And of course, won't be 14 years old anymore. That bit as well.
They will be clicking.
Yeah, also won't be clicking. We'll have more advanced UIs, etc. People will just perform better. So, and that and patch updates greatly increase player power. With that in mind, we're planning a few changes to make the early raid bosses have a bit more punch and attempt to recapture the original challenge. So, to recapture the original challenge, you'll need to make them harder to compensate for players generally being better. So, world buffs are disabled in raid instances. I think that's something a lot of people will be happy about because you just have to go around and collect the world buffs and then either, before log out and then log in for raid, or use the chrono boon time displacer thingy to sort of save them up. So that's really good. Restoring mechanics that were removed early on for some raid bosses. No boss debuff limit, up from 16 in WoW Classic, and increased health on bosses to offset player buffs and the removed debuff limit. So there you go. They want it to feel somewhat more challenging than Classic did in 2019, and I think that is a great change. That certainly would make me more interested.
Yeah, it's just one of those things where I feel like a lot of the changes they made sort of, after the initial wave of Classic and the no changes crowd were kind of a little bit more okay. We will agree there may be some changes that are more helpful, like the world buff stuff. So there's a lot of those changes they made that's like, yeah, now they feel more free to do that. They can give the, not the literal experience that a private server would give, but an experience that's literally, this definitely is a different time now. So I'd love to peer into a different world and see what it looked like if these changes were made for the original Classic. But I think this is one of the important things of actually, how they can go forward with Classic, and that's iteration on the same design, which is, kind of interesting because you'd expect the best thing to be, we'll make a new thing with a new design. But clearly iterating on the content people like a lot the most means that people will get a different experience from the same, the same quest content that they love, the same world that they love. And we are, one step closer to Classic Plus.
Yeah. I would like to see, this is the season of mastery. What is the season of, okay, there's new shit?
Yeah.
They might need a better name than that.
Yeah.
But what would that be?
Season of novelty, I don't know.
Yeah. So, okay, next. Faster leveling. They are increasing XP gains from what they were in the first iteration of Classic. Their current plan is to set them close to what the 1 to 60 XP rates are in TBC Classic, with a bigger focus on quest XP experiences. I've seen a lot of people not be happy about this. I think it is fair enough because the, WoW Classic happened and, everyone got in and did that. I would say that if you are going to have a 12-month cadence and you're basically your plan is to have these seasons, then maybe and it's kind of weird because if you make the level up part of Classic smaller, I mean, Classic didn't, its end game content was not as massive a proportion of total playtime as WoW is now.
Yeah.
But if you're going to move it in that direction, well, maybe you'll need to do this if you're trying to compact that all into, into 12 months. So, yeah, I suppose there's that. For a lot of people, this will also make it more of a prospect to jump in.
Yeah, I think that's one of the important parts, I think, for this, because you kind of have to balance having, the classic players who are classic players in the sense that that's what, basically speedrunners.
Yeah.
Because flattening the curve kind of does bring people who only play a couple hours a week closer in line by, even if it's a strong enough, it could be a couple of weeks faster to 60 versus someone who does, 60 in a day or 2 or 3 or whatever the max speed was for WoW Classic. So I think it's good on that front because I know the idea of the entire world moving so far ahead of you when you have limited time to play really kind of destroyed my desire to play Classic in any capacity. Because obviously, playing through it for content's fine enough, but when you you're going to land in a world where everyone's way ahead of you, the economy's already been completely hijacked by everyone who's at the top, it does certainly feel a little bit less inspiring, let's say, versus a fresh start.
Yeah, it's interesting. But then it's like that kind of thing, the more they do it, the faster people will expect, and you would wonder what the next season is really, what it would look like. But to keep it going then, for quality of life things, they are adding in meeting stones, and they've increased the mining and herbalism nodes as well. Realms tended to be more densely populated in WoW Classic compared to the 2005 design, so they're adding in some more node spawns to give people a bit more of a consistent economy. So who knows, maybe there'll be less of a, sort of the mafias that could pop up. So that'll be interesting to see how it goes. Also, some comments on mage boosting where they did say that, I'll just read out their post. There are a couple of points we'd like to add to the discussion. We would like to make sure it's still viable to level alts in this accelerated time frame. With that in mind, we're planning to take a look at mage boosting in the beta for this release. We have some ideas for adjustments we could make to reduce its impact, especially in current hotspots like Maradon. The proposed XP gains are focused entirely on Quest XP. We don't have any plans to increase other sources of XP at this time. So there you go. That's basically what they're doing. There's a version where perhaps I could see this being more playable for... And it's kind of that weird thing. It's more playable for me in my current situation. Even though that might make it seem less like the game that a lot of the people who really wanted and really enjoyed WoW Classic, sort of advocated for and got.
Aye.
So it's kind of interesting how we think about that. For me, I'm most interested though in just the sheer friggin' fact that they're continuing the WoW Classic project. They're not just cutting over to TBC and leaving Classic. That's interesting to me. And it just does make me wonder, will there ever be a Classic Plus? Because I think that if there was ever a version of World of Warcraft to do a Classic Plus on and to go whole hog into trying to make it a more developed version, maybe a bit more sandboxy, maybe some new content, I think Classic is what suits that far more than TBC or Wrath or any of the others.
Yeah, because everyone's on Azeroth.
Yeah.
Going around as opposed to splintered off into those different things. I think that's certainly, I think, possible now. I'd love to know, and I mean, obviously, it's just like me to go, well, let's think of the incentives. Why would they be doing this now? Like a season after TBC? Is it, engage pessimist mode? Is it because TBC hasn't seen the results they wanted? So they're going to kind of try to run a multiple thing going on? Or is it just because people said, we would quite like Classic Fresh in a survey? Can we have it, please? So I have to wonder if it's that. I guess we'll see if TBC Classic gets any big changes, or if the team is grown to support both, or if the team is kind of shifting over to Classic Fresh. Because at least everything I've seen about, because I haven't really played much, and I haven't seen any numbers, but sentiment online, obviously World of Warcraft sentiment's down substantially, thanks to Activision Blizzard being Activision Blizzard and other reasons. But I feel like TBC might have completely sailed way under their expectations. At least I feel that way.
I mean,
based on what I've seen.
That launch week was just full of, Asmongold TV video, 1 million+ views.
Yeah.
It was negative sentiment everywhere.
Yeah.
Like regarding the monetization. I still see people talking to me about bots and stuff. Now, funny enough, I was fishing with a guy in New World last night, and he was saying, no, I'm still having fun in TBC Classic, and it's like, there's still loads of people having fun there.
Yeah.
But it obviously was not an ideal launch. I think financially it could have been an incredible launch purely just because of, the whales, right? The people doing those microtransactions. But yeah, I mean, the feeling that I've got is certainly not that it's been super, super hot. I think as well, they know they have access to all this content, so if they can find a sort of systemic way to just keep it going forever, they would rather do that. There's more ways to play the game, so that's probably what they want.